Okay, so if you haven't finished the connection, that's okay. You'll have some time at the end of the class to work on this stuff too. I'm going to try my best to give you guys at least a little bit of time every single time I have you in person to get caught up on whatever you need to get caught up on. So if you're behind on something, even if it's not in my class, you will have time to work while you're at school. Okay, in my class at least. I can't say that for other teachers. I don't know how they're going to set up things. But I know that asking you guys to sit for an hour and a half and listen to me talk would probably be pretty painful after like 8 months of being at home. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to do that. All I'm going to ask is that, like, whenever we're talking and going through stuff, that you're paying attention. I know that you have your Chromebooks in front of you. I know that you have headphones, all that stuff. I know it's distracting. Do your best. Okay. I'm not going to police cell phones this year. Just don't be on them the whole time. Now, whenever you're working on your individual stuff, if you want to get on your phone because you're finished or whatever. But while we're talking, just make sure you're paying attention so that you get instruction and all that stuff. That's all I ask. I'm not going to take up your cell phones this year. If you had me last year, you know I took up cell phones. I'm not going to do that. I don't like the idea of having your cell phones in a shared location. And so we're not going to do that. So first off, I'm glad you're here. Okay. I know that this has been chaos and annoying and everything else that you can think of that's bad, and maybe you've enjoyed being at home, and maybe that's been fine, and maybe you haven't. And I don't know which way you're coming from, and I understand both ways. Okay. I have conflicted feelings about the safety of us being here, and I'll be honest with you about that. But while you're here, while we're all here, we're going to do our best to be safe, and we're going to try to do things the right way. Okay. So basically, for the setup of when you come to school, you will see me one time a week. Okay. Because tomorrow you'll be doing 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Okay. If you have questions or anything like that, obviously ask me when we're in person. However, if you can't think of anything while we're sitting here, you can always email me, text me on Remind, whatever. You should have several different ways to get in contact with me. My email address is on the syllabus, and our Remind code is on the syllabus. So if you came to the class late, I don't think anybody did, but if you did come to the class late, I can't remember completely, then you are welcome to go on there and join that. So as of last week, your assignments were due every Saturday at 11:59. You're going to get more time now. So I'm going to assign you 2 lessons per week. You'll have the stuff that you do in person with me, which you should be able to get done while you're here, and it shouldn't be an issue. And then the stuff that you have to do on Thursday, we'll have the stuff that you have to do on Thursday, you will have until next Wednesday to get it done. Okay, and I'm going to try to keep up with the grading in the meantime. Your due dates for your work will not be until the next Wednesday. Okay, so for this week, your work will be due on October 21st. Okay, so you have plenty of time. If you've fallen behind, if you're behind on whatever, it's okay. Get it caught up. If you have a missing grade into the grade book right now, it's mostly just for me to keep track of you. Okay. And so if I see that you have a missing grade, now midterms are due this Wednesday. So if you have something missing, try to get it done today and tomorrow. All right. And I would imagine you will have some time during your classes to work on everybody's stuff. Okay. But for sure, in my class, you will have at least 20 minutes where you can ask questions. You can work on what you need to work on, whatever it might be. Okay. Hopefully it'll be longer than that, but it just depends on how long it takes me to get through all this stuff. Okay. When you're virtual, like I said, you don't have to join in the Google Meet because I'm always going to record them. Okay. And so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to have any problem with that. Yes.
What if videos that you post on the Google platform uploaded?
I will try to upload them to YouTube. I've been really bad about that, but I will try to get them uploaded to YouTube so that way you'll have them. Okay. Is anybody else having that issue where the videos won't upload on your Chromebook? Because Josh is not the only one. I've had some other classes do that. So if that is happening, I will try to remember to put it on YouTube. I'm really bad about remembering to do that, as Josh can probably tell you. But I will work on it. So as far as rules go, obviously things are different this year. That's pretty apparent, right? So try to stay at least 6 feet apart from each other. So I've got the desks separated like that, and I think I've got them pretty well distanced. So that way you're okay. If you need to use the restroom or go to do something, whatever it might be, which you probably won't need to go do anything really for the most part, but you may need to use the restroom during class. There's a virtual hall pass that you will need to scan. Okay, you use your phone. You can either will probably have to do either a QR code scanner, or your phone may automatically do it. When I pull up my camera on my phone, it automatically scans it and takes me to where I need to go. All right, it's a really straightforward form. It's your name and where you're going. That's it. But all the information at the end of the day will be collected from all of the classrooms and be sent to Mr. Mead and Ms. Bartley, and that way they can see, because that way, if you were in the restroom at the same time as somebody else who's been diagnosed with COVID, we'll be able to contact trace. Okay, that was the main place where we couldn't contact trace. All right, and so they will know who was in the restroom at the same time, so that way they can fix that. We've already talked about this, but your mask has to be covering your nose. Okay, I can't hardly breathe in mine. Sometimes I understand, but I can breathe. All right. It's tough sometimes because I'm talking to you the whole time, but I can breathe. All right. So you can breathe too. If you don't cover your face with your mask and you refuse to do so, I'm going to ask you to leave. I don't want to be that person, but I'm not going to let you put anybody else on there. Okay. If your mask is too big and it doesn't work, you can either do like we have right here with the straps twisted, and it makes it tighter, or you can get a disposable one from the front office and see if they can make those tighter for you. Don't sit anywhere with blue tape. I set that off separately for a reason. Any questions so far? We're having Chromebook troubles.
Evidently, you get chargers beside of them, you have the chargers that go with them. I didn't think to check them.
I mean, yeah, you would think that would.
Oh, I mean, they're not.
So this week and next week, we will be doing drills, like fire drills and radio drills, earthquake drills, and lockdown drills. I know they're going to be a little bit different because some of them are going to have to be done class by class. Okay. I know for sure that the fire drill will be done class by class, meaning that whenever it's our time, we will be the only class on this hallway that will go. Okay. So probably will take up a considerable amount of time, I would guess. I don't know if it'll happen during our class. I don't know if it'll happen during third or fourth period. I don't know if it'll happen during second period. I don't know. I doubt it'll happen during second period because that's lunch. But what do I know? But when they come and tell us to go outside for the fire drill, you just come out here, turn right, and go down the steps and out. Straightforward. When you're outside, try to keep distance between yourselves. You do have to stay masked unless you are 6 feet apart. If you're 6 feet apart and you need a mask break while we're outside, you can, but you have to be 6 feet apart. Okay. You can't judge it, over judge it. Okay. Tornado drill, the one where you go outside and your butt has to be in the air and stuff. I also think they're doing that staggered. So I don't think that we'll do it all at once. And so my guess is that like when it's our turn, they'll tell us to come in and we'll do the tornado drill. You guys will go out line up in the hallway. You're down, cover your heads, whatever. I don't know if they're going to just do it the one day or if they have to do it multiple days to cover everybody. I don't remember if they said anything about that. I don't know if they have to, but it's just a thing that they have to do. Earthquake drill is pretty straightforward. You just, whatever desk you're at, you just get up there. Lockdown drill will be a little bit different because obviously we have to distance ourselves. In a real lockdown situation, obviously I would try to huddle you guys together in the corner to keep you safe. But for right now, I will keep you guys at your desks and you have to remain quiet. And I have a thing that will go down over the door window so that nobody can see you. And that's pretty much, I think, the rundown of the drills for right now. Now, if there ever is some kind of intruder in the building, we're not going to worry about 6 feet distance. We're going to worry about being safe. Okay. Which arguably is also not safe, I know, but immediate threat, right? Okay. Any questions so far about any of this stuff? This is a lot of information, I know. Any questions about any of it? I know it's a lot. Are y'all feeling okay? Feel good about being here today? Yeah? Are you glad you're here? A little bit? Okay. Some of you are like, nah, yeah, sort of, I guess. So we are going to just briefly go back through the text that we've read so far, just talk about them a little bit. You all have done a lot of work virtually with different texts. So we've done, we've had America Ferrera. We've had Mindy Kaling. We've had Stitches, right? The graphic novel. Let's see. Who else have we had? Who am I missing? Stitches. We had Fish Cheeks, Amy Tan. I want to say that's all. Maybe. And you did your shared experience writing and all that good stuff. Okay. So I think that's all. Oh, Hillbilly Elegy. So was there any of those that really stuck out to you that like you sort of felt like you liked better or that you just kind of felt like you connected to better? Stitches? So, Hillbilly? So what about Stitches made you sort of feel connected to him? What was it connected to not Josh. Josh is the character we're going to read about today. David.
He doesn't do what his mother told him to do.
Okay. And what about Hillbilly? I could see that. I could very much see that. Did you guys have a similar thought with that? Is that reminds you kind of being around here and things like that? It definitely sticks out to me. He is talking about a place that is not here, but obviously it's still very much like here, right? Does anything else stick out to you? Any others that you liked particularly well? I tried to give you a good smattering of experiences and things that I thought you could at least somewhat connect to. And even if you couldn't completely connect to them, you could find something to sort of draw you in, I guess, with them. And so, I don't think of what I want to say here. The ultimate goal of what we're doing, and we'll start this next week, is you are going to be writing a short essay. And the essay is a little bit different than what you probably have done before. It's called a This I Believe essay. Okay. And basically what that means is you're going to pick something that you firmly believe in. It can be something tiny, be something huge, something that you firmly believe in. And you're going to explain why you believe in that thing. And we're going to listen to some next week. This is from an old NPR series where people would like do podcasts. But I know that recording them and all that stuff would be too chaotic right now. And so we'll write them. And if you want to record them separately and send them in, you can. You don't have to though. But the goal for us is for you guys to be able to write this. And I wanted to show you all these different people with all these different backgrounds so that you guys kind of had a good understanding of what makes you who you are, right? How do you get from baby you to you now, right? Because you guys are either already 18, getting ready to turn 18, getting ready to embark on whatever you're going to embark on next year, whatever it may be. And, you know, the whole goal that I have set out for this entire school year is to get you ready for that, whatever it is. We're going to do some college application essay stuff. We're going to do some job application essay stuff, or not essay, but job application stuff, resume writing, right? And maybe you've already done that. And if you already have it, you can have a set of eyes looking at it. Who will correct your grammar and spelling. So you'd be surprised at how many hiring managers will not hire you if you have incorrect spelling on your resume. Okay. You got to make sure your contact information is correct and all that stuff. And so my whole goal for this year is to have you guys be ready for next year. And the first step of that is to figure out who you are. Who are you? What do you want to do with yourself? Okay. And I know that's a really awful question to have to ask in the middle of a global pandemic. But unfortunately, as we can tell by being in person in school right now, the world goes on, right? And so you still got to figure out what you're doing next year. Okay. And if you already figured it out, all that good stuff, awesome. You are ahead of the game. If you haven't, it's okay. All right. And so all of these texts that we're looking at, everything that we've talked about so far and that we're going to finish talking about this week is really leading up to this essay you're going to write. And I'll share mine with you. I wrote one of these when I was in high school, maybe a year younger than you guys. And to be honest with you, I still firmly believe in the thing I wrote about, and I'll tell you about it next week. But I think it's something that could really carry with you all. And you could take it with you and say, you know, this is something that I think I will believe in forever, right? And it can be a lot of things, okay? And so we'll talk about some of those things and go through that next week. But that's kind of where we are and what we're doing with this. You guys have any questions for me so far? Feel good about it? Excited to figure out who you are? Maybe? Okay. So if you will go onto Classroom and go to the day 11 lesson and pull up, We Should Hang Out Sometime. Should be a PDF on there. If you want to, you can also pull up the Google Doc that has the questions in there. You'll have time to work on them. But if you want to be answering them as we're reading and things like that, you can do that as well. Okay. When you open up the Google Doc, it should make a copy for you. Okay. Or in the hospital. I have plenty. Okay, so the text that we're reading from is called We Should Hang Out Sometime. This is the guy, all right? He is going to talk to you about sort of adolescent dealing with really awkward experiences, but also having lost a leg and having cancer at the age of 9. So there's a lot of things going on there. But this is him telling his story essentially of growing up in this situation. And there's like sections in the book, and every section is about a different girl that he had a crush on at some point in his life / that he eventually ended up with or whatever. So this first one is just chapters 1 and 2. I've only tried to give you a couple of chapters 1 for copyright reasons because I can't copy a whole book into Google Classroom. I will get in a lot of trouble for that. But also secondly, because a lot of the information that you get about people, they share with you in the first couple of chapters. Because they have to build things for you, right? If you're telling me about yourself, you're going to start with some foundational things so I know who you are, right? You have to kind of build that up. And so in these first 2 chapters that we're going to read together, he talks about sort of these defining experiences that he's had at his young age. Okay, so everybody there, everybody have it pulled up in front of them? Yes? All right. Anybody want to read out loud? You don't have to. I will also read out loud. No? Okay, that's fine. All right. Sarah Stevens would pick truth. I knew she would. I mean, yeah, sure. There was an outside chance she would pick dare. But since the dares on this particular day were limited by A, the confines of a 15-passenger van, and B, the moral authority of its driver, there wasn't a lot of point to picking dare. Now, generally, when you play truth or dare in 8th grade, all the dares end up being some sort of expedition to explore the anatomy of the opposite gender. I dare you to put your hand here, your lips there. But not so much when you're with your church youth group, and not so much when your youth group pastor, Joe Slater, is driving. And so it just so happens that he recently took the youth group to a weekend-long seminar called I Kissed Dating Goodbye, where you learn that you should say physical exploration, including all forms of putting your hand here or your lips there for marriage. A lot of information in that first page, right? So what do we have about him? in this first page? Where is he? Church fan. How old is he? Yeah, 13 or 14. He's eighth grade. Okay. What game is he playing? Truth or Dare. And then who is the primary subject of this first page? Who's the important person there? Who does he start off with? Sarah Stevens. Okay. So this section is titled Sarah Stevens. And so he's going to talk about this. So we're on a church van playing Truth or Dare. We're in eighth grade. Put yourself there. Difficult, I know. Put yourself there, though. Okay. Well, in this particular church van environment, picking Dare was pointless. If you did, you would end up with something lame, gross, and improvised, like eating a leftover fast food squeeze packet of mayonnaise or whatever. Tony had picked Truth, and then he was asked who he liked, which turned out to be some girl from his Christian school who most of us didn't know. It was kind of a letdown, but now his term was over and he had picked Sarah Stevens. Sarah, Truth or Dare. As long as she picked Truth, I knew with complete certainty what he would ask her. Tony had my back. Tony looked at me. We shared a slight nod. We knew what was about to go down. This was it, the big moment. Our chance to see if our theories were correct. If Sarah Stevens liked me the way I liked her. If she had been talking with her best friend about me the way I had been talking with Tony about her. Do you like Josh? Tony asked. Check. Obviously, I couldn't ask her myself, even in a game of Truth or Dare, because that would be awkward. But I knew Tony would do it for me. I mean, he stuck with me even when I had cancer. And that's about as serious a test as friendship can face. We'd grown up 2 doors away from each other, Tony and me. I'd always been homeschooled. He had always gone to Christian school, so I would spend my days waiting until he got home when he could come outside and build forts with me. Then the cancer. I was 9. I had a 50% chance to live. I would go to the hospital for 5 days, then come home for 2 weeks, then go back to the hospital. When I was home, I had hardly any energy. I didn't play outside, and I couldn't build forts or ride bikes or do any of the things Tony and I used to do before I got sick and before my left leg had to be amputated from the hip down. But you know what? Tony didn't care. He would sit inside with me and play computer games or board games or whatever it was that I had the energy to do. That long year of chemotherapy, that's when I first learned that Tony had my back. So you have friend Tony and Josh. Okay? Everyone at Covenant Presbyterian Church did, really. Even Sarah Stevens, come to think of it. She had been one of the 50 kids who bought Covenant Kids for Joshua t-shirts. And then I first started losing my hair to the chemotherapy. Sarah's little brother, Jim, had been one of 18 boys who gathered in my family's backyard one afternoon and shaved their heads. That's the thing about going to church. There's a bunch of extra rules you have to follow, like about dating. But the upside is that if you get cancer, if your life falls apart, church people will shave their heads and buy t-shirts for you. They will do anything they can to help you. Anybody have similar experiences to that? You may go to church regularly in here? Yeah? Do you feel like when you go to church, like there's like a support system?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I grew up in church, and there definitely was something like that. Like it was kind of like I knew that, you know, there were rules and things I had to follow and do, but when it came down to it, it was a family, right? And they were going to take care of me. And so that's something that you kind of can think about as being sort of a general connection, right? It doesn't matter what church you're going to. They're probably going to be like a family or have your back. Now, not always, I know. Some of you guys may have not had great experiences with that. I understand that too. Okay. But if we're thinking about relating to this, sometimes they are like that. Okay. Sarah Stevens glanced at a couple of the girls in the van. They smiled, biting lower lips to suppress giggles. For a moment, I basked in the hope that this meant she was going to say yes. No, she said, looking at Tony, not at me. I felt a hot, tingly sensation spread over my skin as I slid down a few inches against the bench seat, wishing I could melt directly into its crusty upholstery. Not only did Sarah Stevens not like me, but she had just said so in front of all 15 passengers in this van. It was a 1-2 knockout punch of rejection plus humiliation. I disengaged from the Truth or Dare game until its chatter was mere background noise. And after you've been shut down in front of everyone, publicly declared to be uncrushworthy by Sarah Stevens, who cares about anything else? So what if someone is gagging on a squeezed packet of mayonnaise? At the retreat center, I set a pair of crutches on the unfinished cement floor, beneath the bunk I was sharing with Tony. We were staying in a rustic cabin with 20 bunk beds and a single naked light bulb operated by hanging string of tiny metal balls. I navigated my way through the maze of bunks to Joe Slater, who was unrolling his sleeping bag on the plastic mattress of a bottom bunk. Joe was in his late 20s with an intense gaze, a booming laugh, and a V-shaped athletic build, all of which perfectly matched both his name, Joe Slater, and his job description, youth pastor. Hey, Joe, what are we going to do next? For me, not knowing the activity schedule was like living in an environment where the weather could fluctuate by 100 degrees at any moment. I never knew what to wear. We're going to dinner, he said, in the dining hall. Dinner. Got it. Keep the prosthesis on. Because my leg is amputated all the way up at my hip, my prosthesis includes 3 artificial joints, hip, knee, and ankle, which makes the leg very heavy and cumbersome to wear. There are a lot of amputees who run and play sports with their prostheses on. These tend to be the amputees who are popularized in the media and thus the sort who come to mind when the average person thinks of the word amputee. But most of these amputee athletes are below knee amputees, meaning their legs and somewhere in between their ankle and the knee, somewhere between the ankle and the knee. If you are a below knee amputee, particularly if you are missing only your foot, the prosthesis can allow you to run just as fast as an able-bodied person. Above knee amputees, though, have a harder time because they don't have the muscles of the quadriceps to propel their knees forward. It is possible to run with an above knee prosthesis, but it is difficult and certainly not as fast as running with a real human leg. Most difficult of all, though, is the hip disarticulation level, which is what I am. For hip dysartics, running on the prosthesis is not possible. The leg simply doesn't swing through fast enough. So you can see where he's had an amputation on his left leg there. And so this idea that he has to sort of think ahead and plan ahead every single time they do anything. He's at a camp, right? He's presumably a church camp, but he's at a camp. And so you would think going to a camp, kids would be pumped because they would get to go, go swimming or go, run and play and do whatever. But he has to constantly be thinking ahead, right? And it kind of causes him this sort of inner turmoil, which is why he asks every single time, what are we doing next, Joe? All right, that'll come back up in a minute. So just stay with me on that. So for most types of athletic activities, I would take my leg off and either run with my crutches or set my crutches down and hop. I was faster and more agile without the leg, but I was also more self-conscious. And with the crutches, I didn't have my hands free to, say, carry a plate of food, which is why I wear my leg to the dining hall for dinner and why I plan to wear it to all non-athletic social activities during my retreat. After dinner, Joe got up and gave the rules for the weekend, the usual. No going into the other gender's cabin, no talking after lights out, no going off anywhere by yourself, stuff like that. Then Joe told us to open up our Bibles, and he gave a talk, which is youth group speak for a sermon. The usual, no getting distracted by worldly pursuits, no motives except to bring glory to God, no sexual or impure thoughts, stuff like that. He prayed and then announced that we were all meeting by the lake in 10 minutes. Prosthesis still on, I walked over to Joe. What are we going to do next? I asked. Joe frowned, not wanting to ruin the surprise. By the lake, I persisted. Don't tell anyone, but it's nighttime, capture the flag. Cool, thanks. That meant leg off using crutches so I would be able to run. Of course, even with my crutches, I wasn't an especially useful teammate in capture the flag. Couldn't really hold the flag and move at the same time, but at least on the crutches, I could run around to make it look like I was participating. The participation would be fake, but what did that matter when the alternative was wearing, a fake leg? That's what it means to be an amputee. You're always putting on a show. Down by the lake, we divided into teams, counting off by ones and twos. I tried to shift in line so I could be on the same team as Sarah Stevens. It worked. Not that I was going to talk to her or anything, not after her bombshell during Truth or Dare, but for some reason it seemed important that we be on the same team, working together to capture the flag. All right, so that's chapter 1. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like you had that much wherewithal as an 8th grader? Would you have been able to kind of think ahead and plan ahead to think about what are we going to do next, and do I have to do this or do I have to do that? Probably not, right? And so he has a level of maturity in his own immaturity, right? There's still the immaturity of being the 8th grader and playing Truth or Dare and yada, 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 right? But he's still he understands things on a different level than most people do, okay? And so he is your typical 8th grader, but he's also not, all right? So let's start chapter 2. On Saturday morning after a pancake breakfast, I did not have to ask Joe what we were going to do next because he announced it to the group, hiking at Shenandoah National Park. It was going to be an all-day trip, and we should wear our bathing suits under our hiking clothes. When we loaded into vans for the drive to the hiking trail, something totally insane happened. Sarah Stevens sat beside me. We were so close that one of her 2 legs and my one leg were almost touching. And it's not like she had to sit beside me. There had been other vans. There had been other rows with available seats in this van. She chose to sit beside me, which made me wonder, what if she liked me after all? Maybe she was lying yesterday in Truth or Dare. Lord, if that isn't an 8th grader talking, I don't know what is, right? I mean, really. You could probably picture yourself thinking some of these things in 8th grade, but I've taught 8th graders and they are like this. You were like this. I was like this. Miss Welsh was like this, okay? And it's crazy to me to think that even though he is considerably, well, he's probably my age, but you all are considerably younger than me. And we still have those shared experiences, right? We still have those similar things that we think, even though there's a gap in our age, right? I thought about this as I walked along the hiking trail. It really did seem like she liked me. Not only had she sat beside me in the van, but sometimes when I looked at her, like this morning at breakfast or last night during Joe's talk, she was already looking at me. And then we would both look away from each other, because of course. The trail eventually led to a waterfall. It was a for-real one too, like what you see on a postcard, about 100 feet of vertical drop. While the rest of the group was splashing around in the foamy pool underneath, I climbed up by myself up a trail so steep you had to grab onto exposed tree roots to keep from slipping. It was tricky because I'd have to let go of my forearm crutch. I have to let go of my forearm crutch handle for a second, allowing the cuff of the crutch to dangle from my wrist, while I grabbed at the root and pulled myself up like on a chin-up bar. At the top, there was a rock the size of a small car that jutted out over the falls. Sitting on it was a guy and a girl, mid-20s, with their arms draped over each other's shoulders, sharing what appeared to be some kind of homemade cigarette. "Hey, kid," the guy said to me. "Hey," I said. "This place is legit, huh?" "Very legitimate, yes." "How old are you?" 13. "You got a girlfriend?" I thought about Sarah Stevens. "No." The guy took a drag on the cigarette. "Let me give you a tip. Once you get yourself a girlfriend," he said, nodding his chin toward the girl he was intertwined with, "bring her right here. Sit on this rock." He winked at me as if I should understand. I didn't, but nodded anyway. "Trust me," he said. "You'll be glad you did." "Cool. Thanks." When we got back to the retreat center that afternoon, I found Joe Slater. "What are we going to do next?" I said. "Showers, then dinner. What about after that?" Joe looked away for a second, squinting into the woods. "Listen, Josh, sometimes it's best to just go with the flow, to have some faith that God will take care of things. Every moment of your life doesn't need to be planned out in advance. Sometimes the best moments are the spontaneous ones you don't plan for. You get what I'm saying?" There's a problem there, though, right? What is Joe not paying attention to? Is Josh, huh? He needs the plan. What happens if Josh doesn't have the plan? Yeah, he could be wearing the wrong thing and then he wouldn't be able to participate, right? So Joe's missing a big part of this, and I'm not certain why he wouldn't have noticed that this boy's leg would come off and on, but here we are. Just a thought. Okay. His words were true in the way most things printed on greeting cards are true. But I wasn't asking him about the schedule because I had a problem with spontaneity. I was asking because I needed to know whether or not to wear my leg. Only I didn't want to tell Joe because doing so would violate my rules of being an amputee. I had developed these rules during the 3 years since I'd lost my leg. It wasn't like I sat down one day and said, "What are some good rules I can write for myself?" Instead, they had taken root and sprouted without conscious attention like weeds in my mind. And they grew in the exact opposite direction of how it feels to be an amputee. They were a correction, or maybe an overcorrection. These were my rules. 1, never be a burden. 2, never be different. As Joe and I stood there by the vans in the gravel parking area, wearing t-shirts and semi-wet bathing suits, towels draped over our shoulders, I considered telling him the reason I always wanted to know the schedule. I needed to decide whether to wear my leg or not. But doing so would violate both of my rules. It would make me a burden because if he knew I was making a decision about whether or not to wear a prosthesis based on each activity he planned, it might affect the way he planned the schedule. Instead of thinking, would this be a fun activity for the students, he'd be thinking, I wonder if Josh will want to wear his prosthesis for this game. Or maybe he will already be on his crutches at this point in the day, which would mean we should play this other game instead. And obviously telling him would violate rule number 2 as well, because it would identify me as different. I mean, no one else in the youth group was fluctuating their limb count depending on the activity. There's you a nice graphic there. And yes, I get that I was very different from everyone else. I was visually different, conspicuously, different, obviously different. All you had to do was look at me. I was missing a leg. Either I was using crutches and there was no leg there at all, or I was wearing one that didn't look quite right and caused me to limp. So yeah, I was different, and there was nothing I could do about it. When you're faced with a significantly life-altering negative situation you can't control, you grasp at the little things you can control, the little opportunities where you can make choices for yourself. I couldn't choose to get my leg back. No, but I could choose to ask my youth pastor about the schedule without telling him my hip disarticulated leg was the reason I was asking. This is why instead of explaining all this to Joe, I was just like, yeah, that's probably good advice. But seriously though, what are we doing after dinner? Joe sighed and then smirked. The talent show. The talent show had been announced before the retreat in case people wanted to bring their clarinet or whatever. But no one knew when in the weekend the event would take place. Except now, for me. Dinner, then talent show. Leg on. Okay, cool, thanks, I said. At the talent show, Joe Slater himself had an act, one where he awarded most likely to style superlatives. He would say someone's name and then make a reference to something funny that had happened at the retreat, like most likely to walk into a spiderweb on the hike, or most likely to snore, and then everyone would laugh and cheer. Josh Sundquist, he read off the list, most likely to ask, what are we going to do next? He impersonated me using an annoying little kid's voice. I felt a stab of betrayal, like Joe had revealed a secret I confided in him. But it was my fault. I had chosen not to tell him why. I was confident he would have happily given me the entire schedule printed on a sheet of paper a week in advance of the retreat, if that's what I wanted. And if he had known, certainly he would not have made a joke about it in a talent show. People will bend over backward to be helpful and accommodating if they know it's about your disability. But I had chosen to keep the reason a secret because it was about my disability, because I didn't want to be a burden, because I didn't want to be different. And ironically, this had led to both of my rules being broken. Even though I never told him why I was asking, I had clearly become a burden to Joe. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given me the award. That was the joke here. I had asked so many times that I had become annoying and a burden. And because none of the other students had overheard me asking Joe for the frequent schedule updates, no one actually got the joke. So they didn't laugh at my award like they did the others. My award was met with awkward silence and then a smattering of applause, which made me feel very different indeed. I stole a peek at Sarah Stevens. She was staring at me. When our eyes met, she looked away. All right. So what are your thoughts at the end of that? You need to stand up and stretch. That'd be helpful. Stand up behind your desk and stretch if you need to. I'll give you 30 seconds. No takers? All right. So, all in classroom underneath the reading, there's a Google Doc. When you open it, it should open up a copy for you. And I think, I want to say 4 questions that I want you to answer on that Google Doc. They're pretty straightforward, but I want you guys to think about, looking back at the text, thinking about what it is that we get from it. Why is it important that we get the information we get in the very first 2 chapters, right? Yes, 4 questions. You can go back and look at the text. Obviously, you have it pulled in front of you. And I'd like for these to be answered in complete sentences, okay? Try to give me 1 to 2. If you have more to say, have more to say. But this will be your assignment for the class. You'll submit it to me, and then you can work on whatever you need to work on, okay? We're done at 10:35. Yeah, 10:35. And so, when you open it, does it give you your own copy? It's supposed to make a copy for you guys. Let me double check I've set that up right. Yeah, okay, you should get your own copy. So that way you're not editing each other's, basically. Do you have any questions for me? Anything you're confused about? Anything that you want me to explain further? Do you want me to shut up so you can do your work? Okay, all right.